welcome to another episode of Suboptimal. This is episode 4. Again, I've done a tiny little bit of leveling up here. I've got a ring light, so it's a bit brighter. Nothing different with the studio here. It's the same. My kitchen, it's where I do everything. And I've got a new shirt, and it cost me a total of 17 yen, which is amazing. So I don't know what that is. Say it's 10 cents in other currencies. It's not much anyway. So I've finally been able to get this thing called Mercari. So it's kind of like an online marketplace type of thing. It's easily better than anything you could imagine back in your own country. For me, marketplace and things like Gumtree in Australia. So you're not sure what you're going to get or who's going to rip you off. But somehow this Mercari platform is very secure, and it's so easy to do transactions with. If you don't like the product or the product doesn't meet your, what you thought when you purchased it, you can return it, to do those things. It's very safe and secure. I've been able to sign up for a Mercari card. So when I did, they gave me 99% discount coupon. So this was online, and I'm going through this huge phase of Columbia shirts. So the sporting brand, and this is a range of fishing shirts that they used to make in the 90s and early 2000s. And I saw this and I thought, you know what, I'm going to get this. I've been buying other kinds of the newer style. They're called performance fishing gear, and the material's awesome for Japan because it gets so hot and humid here that it just automatically kind of like soaks up any sweat. Notorious for sweating. And then you put me in a place like Japan and it just increases by 1,000%. So perfect for me. This isn't that material, but it's an awesome color, and I just like the shirts. When I find something, I kind of go a little bit deep into it. So my wardrobe is basically Columbia shirts, all Columbia shirts, different colors, Dickies pants, same type of pant, different colors, Polo Ralph Lauren shirts, same cut, same style of shirt, different colors. That's my uniform. And it's also easy for me to know what I'm going to wear because I don't have all these different types of clothes. I've just got different kind of colors, and I like to wear kind of bright colors and match my clothes. But I don't think of myself as like a fashion type of person. I just like clothes that are durable, that are colorful, and that I don't have to go and buy every, 3 or 4 months. I'm kind of into buying things that I know that I can have for at least 10 years plus. This cap, for example, I bought almost 10 years ago, and I wear this cap every single day, and it's still going, and I will wear it until the day it just disintegrates and falls into a million pieces. But the hard thing is to go and find another hat that's comparable to this. So it's kind of my clothing routine. It's got nothing to do with what I'm going to talk about today, but each time I want this podcast to get a little bit better in terms of the quality. So visually, it's better than the first one because the first one was my computer camera on Substack. So it's very lo-fi, low quality, to now where it's still very lo-fi in terms of the content that I'm discussing, but it's giving me a chance to get used to talking in front of a camera and doing things like that. And as for the content, I've actually got a few people who have requested to be on a podcast. So that's great. I'm going to start that process soon and get people to come on and talk about things that are important to them. The thing I want to do with the guests as well is the point of this podcast is that, yes, it's a little bit rough around the edges, kitchen, studio, whatever, basic equipment and that type of stuff, is that we don't always operate under optimal conditions. That's why I call it suboptimal, because you kind of go through these parts in your life when you're not producing the best outcomes and you're not the best version of yourself. You haven't created success yet. There's all of these conditions that kind of live underneath that. That's the stuff I want to talk about, because if you jump on LinkedIn, and I've said in previous podcasts, I spend a lot of time doing my social media stuff through that, is everyone's excited to talk about successes all the time, but you have to be foolish to think that people are successful 100% of the time, right? They didn't become successful without all of these suboptimal conditions that they've gone through to get to the optimal outcome. That's the place that I want to talk about. I'm going to go and do my best to find people who are interesting and have got something interesting to talk about and get them on board as well. So that's in the pipeline. And I really want to have a deeper conversation where I can kind of learn from them, and hopefully the audience can learn from these people coming on about some of the struggles, because that's where you learn things, is through the process. To get to what I wanted to talk about today is a little bit about what I've studied. I'm a bit of a habitual studier, and I think the reason that I study, I've mentioned in one of my earlier podcasts about not feeling very smart and being a bit self-deprecating. And a lot of that has to do with, I think, the way that teachers interacted with me back at school. And so now, as a way of avoiding that, I put myself down before other people get a chance to. I still don't think I'm smart, but yeah, again, if you look at my results academically, I have done really well at university level and postgraduate level, but I still keep thinking that study is going to give me the outcome that I want. And that there comes a time, I think, when you're studying that you have to accept that, let's draw a line in the sand. And so the next step is doing something with that study. I've studied urban planning, and the reason I did that was from living in Japan in the early 2000s and just seeing how vastly different it was to my hometown, where the public transport system is a little bit broken, it's late, you don't have high levels of customer service for those types of things. Traffic management was inefficient. And now it's kind of like the flip of that, especially for infrastructure in Australia. It's so different. I think where I live in Fukushima is kind of what my hometown looked like 30 years ago, and nothing has changed here ever since. It takes 3 or 4 years to build just a tiny section of road. But anyway, so I studied urban planning and the Japan experience, and then seeing my hometown through the lens of having lived in Japan when I got back got me interested in studying urban planning. And I did really well, graduated with honors, wrote a thesis, came time to looking for work, and a lot of the work had dried up, or the work that was out there didn't really match where I wanted to go and, evolve my study. And I knew that if I'd gone into those roles, it would be very similar to the types of roles that I was doing in banking. So very process oriented and very task oriented. So I didn't really see a difference between the work I was doing at a bank versus working at a local government council kind of thing, doing a very similar type of thing. Although in hindsight, if I had done that, I probably would have achieved the career path that I wanted to. But at that time, I guess I was very anti, like, nah, I'm not doing that kind of thing. I want to do this. So I ended up continuing on at the bank and getting into marketing and stuff like that. Had a few personal tragedies go on in my life, and just a few things that changed the course of my life. And I turned to doing some postgraduate study, and that was in positive psychology. I'm focusing on research. And so my research is in workplace well-being. So that's something that I feel very passionate about. It's not a very sexy topic, but I also feel that in the workplace, there's so many unhappy people. And I think that it's a big cause of people's mental health issues. Being stuck in a job that you hate, you don't feel like you can climb out of it. Going sideways means that nothing really changes. You might have a boss who knows less than you, but earns double your income, and you feel resentment towards that. And when you try to suggest new ways of doing work, your position hinders you from being listened to. So my focus of research at the moment is workplace well-being, and coming up with a way that allows people who work the day-to-day task jobs, process environments, shuffling paper around, entering numbers on a screen, have more say in how their day looks. And I think that then needs to come from the top, and the top management level, building business units and strategies and things like that needs to open up the floor to allow people who want to have a say in informing what the day-to-day looks like. Because I think that if you're able to do your job easily. You have less clunky processes. You have less people micromanaging your tasks and things like that. You take away so much of the discomfort of working in an office environment. Workplaces seem to focus on things like workplace wellbeing programs, like mental health days and EAP, like counseling services and morning teas and lunches and a mental health day here and there. And while that's all well and good, it doesn't really address what your work looks like at a day-to-day level. So you can have a pizza day once a month, but it's still not going to make people happier. But allowing people to have more say in what they do and making them feel more empowered that they're in the driver's seat of their jobs, that's such a huge benefit to businesses because you get more productive people, you get people who are engaged in their work and also feel like that their voice is being heard. But if they're able to do their job better, they're able to show leaders they're capable of doing more. And as leaders, that should then be recognized and give people career opportunities. But rather than this real archaic way of running a business where managers are protective of their roles, so they're controlling of how the people below them do their day to day. So I'm very focused on this. And it's such an important topic to me because I've worked in those roles before and I hated it. And that's why I spend a lot of my time doing things like making podcasts, creating music, taking photos, researching, trying to find my own way of making a life that's happy for me. So that's kind of been a good evolution from my last part of the study. While I'm not working in coaching or HR or well-being using my degree, I'm researching that and learning more about it so I can have a voice online and talk about it because I have experienced it in a practical sense and I've studied about it and I see that there's a huge gap in allowing people to have a say. And there might be reasons for that. And that's the point of doing research is to find out what those reasons are. So what I'm thinking now might not actually end up being what the result is. I might come up with a different result at the end that, employee-led workplace well-being is just not possible because how do you get any work done? It could be something as simple as that. But when you float these ideas out to the world, you often get people who say, oh, no, that's not going to work. That's shit because of this and that. In my role, I've never done that, would never work. And those haters are the reason why I want to listen to them. I want to hear why they've got that opinion. But I know that not everyone is going to have that same opinion. There might be leaders who actually listen to what their workers are saying and build processes from the bottom up so the outcome is better. I want to hear those people too. What kind of organizations are they working in? Is it a small one? Is it a large one? What works? What doesn't work? How do you communicate this? What all the mechanics are of that. But so that's the point of doing research. And I think a lot of that gets lost online because people want to have a fixed opinion because they believe that to be true. So they find people who believe that same thing. I'm really kind of tired of that way of thinking. I want to do something that I know that I'm making myself vulnerable by saying what I'm saying. But how will I know if I'm right if I don't listen to other people and get that objective viewpoint from a number of different sources, plus academic research, plus real life research, and come up with a new way of thinking? That might change people's minds, or it might prompt somebody in a large business to trial this thing and then see how it goes. Like, you just never know. That's the beauty of doing things by yourself. So, and while I'm doing all of this, of course I'm looking for jobs. I've mentioned before that I'm at a bit of a crossroads about whether I stay in Japan or whether I go home or not. But yeah, I'm not a fool to think that this is going to result in me earning seven figures. And also the subject matter. I'm not a comedian. I'm not talking about hot topics and, Hollywood and gossip and all of that stuff. I'm talking about it's a very specific thing. But again, that's why I want to have this balanced podcast, because some people might find this interesting. Some people who haven't ever really thought about how they feel at work might listen to this and it might plant a seed in their head and go and talk to their boss or help create a new initiative at work about how to do stuff better. And that's who I want to reach. The research has only started, so I'm going to probably talk about this again and what I've learned along the way. because this, I could be researching this for years and I still might not come up with an answer, but that's part of researching. So yeah, that's it for today. I will see you again, hopefully with a guest. I'm just going to do a little bit of prep for that because I want to be able to ask questions and get better at that side of things, learning to listen, learning to ask the right questions and knowing when to speak and those things. If I'm going to do this right, be a good interviewer, those are things that I need to learn and take a back seat. So watch this space. Thanks again for listening. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, tell your friends about it, follow me on the platforms that I'm on, which is mainly LinkedIn, Spotify, YouTube, Substack, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Take care. See ya.